Hi there, this video is about SURDS, so let's have a look at some exam question. We've got the root of 45 and we want to write it in the form of a root 5, where a is an integer. Just remember, integer means it's a whole number. So let's take a look at root 45. So what you want to do is find two factors that make up 45. So two factors that make up 45 are root 9 multiplied by root 5. Now, as you notice, one of these factors is a square number. So if I square root 9, that takes me to 3 multiplied by root 5. And therefore, times sign, I don't need to put there. It disappears to give me 3 lots of root 5, and that's how I would write it. So therefore, our A is is 3. Now let's look at this next one. I'm going to multiply out using FOIL. So let's just focus on the double bracket there. So we've got 3 plus root 5. And then this 2 plus root 5. So using FOIL, first I'm going to times 3 by 2. And that's 3 times by 2 is 6. Then I'm going to do 3 times by root 5. So that gives me 3 lots of root 5. Okay, so first outer, then we do the inner. So we're going to root 5 times by 2, which is 2 lots of root 5. And root 5 times by root 5, which is our last, is actually root 25. But if you square root 25, it will take me back down to 5. So I've got this plus 5 over here. Okay, collecting the like terms, well, 6 and 5 will give me 11. And 3 root 5 add on to 2 root 5 gives me 5 root 5 by collecting these. So you just need to do 3 plus 2, which is 5. Now remember, the whole thing is being times by 2. So what I'm now going to do is just expand my bracket. The 2 times by 11 is 22. Then 2 times by 5 is 10 root 5. There you have your answer. Okay, let's move on to question 2. You need to expand and simplify the following. So we're going to use FOIL again. So firstly, 4 times by 4 is 16. Then I'm going to do 4 times by negative root 3, which is a negative 4 root 3. Then root 3 is going to times by 4, which is a positive 4 root 3. And then root 3 times by root 3 is negative 3. Let's just quickly have a look at that. When root 3 multiplied by this negative root 3, that will give me negative root 9. If I square root 9, I get negative 3, just to explain why that turned into a negative 3. Now collecting the like terms, so let's have a look at this middle bit. I've got negative root 3, and I'm plusing a 4 root 3. So a negative 4 plus 4 would give me 0 lots of root 3. So this actually disappears. Then I'm just left with 16 take away 3. And my final answer is 13. Okay, well that was part A of the question. Now let's look at part B. If you've noticed that we've got this 4 plus root 3, similar to what we had in the beginning of, at the start of the question, well, we're actually going to use the the calculation that we have done to help us answer this question. So I'm going to express this fraction where the denominator is irrational because it has a surd. So anything with a surd in it is going to be considered irrational. With regards to my denominator, I have an irrational. And I want to put it in the form of a plus b root 3. If you have a look at this, there is no fraction. So how do we get this to disappear and to give the numbers a and b are integers, they're whole numbers. So let's take a look. I've got 26 over 4 plus root 3. I want to rationalize it, meaning I want to turn my base to a whole number. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to times it by itself, but this time swap for the negative. Now if you notice at the beginning, these are the same. We've got 4 and 4 and root 3 and root 3. One's a plus and one's a minus. Okay, now what ended up happening, the centre got, the 2 bits containing the surds got eliminated. Well, we call this dots. That's the difference of squares, so you may already know this. So if you multiply this by itself, and whatever you do to the bottom you do to the top, what you end up happening, because we've already done the calculation, is just 13 at the bottom. Now we just need to multiply the top, which will give us 104, take away 26, and root 3. So let's just take a look. 13 can be divided by 104, and it also can be divided by 26. So if I take 104 and divide it by 13, I would get 8. And if I take 26 and I divide it by 13, I would get 2. So therefore, this is my answer. So just remember over here that if you are dividing by a common factor at the bottom, then 104 can be divided by 13, so can 26. And that brings us down to this final answer, resulting in, that's just a 1 there. Let's move on to the next question. We got 108, and we want to express it in the form of a root 3. So let's take 108. So two numbers that multiply to give me 108 are root 4 multiplied by root 27. Now let's look at the square root of 4. 4 is a square number, so if I square root it I get 2. Now I could rewrite that bit as root 9 times by root 3. What's special about 9 is that it's a square number, so if I square root it I get 2, and this term converts to a 3. We're timesing by root 3. Now I times my integers together to give me 6 root 3, and that's our value of A. Okay, so now we're going to multiply out this. Part B is asking us to multiply out this. Just remember, if you have the square on top, what it means is that this bracket is going to multiply by itself. Now, dots only applies if one is positive and one is negative. They're both negatives, so therefore the surd won't rationalize. We won't get a whole number at the end. So let's just take a look. 2 times by 2 is 4. 2 times by negative root 3 is negative 2 root 3. And this repeats. We get another negative root 2 3. And then negative root 3 times by negative root 3 is positive root 9, which simplifies down to positive 3. So remember the double negative rule. When two negative numbers multiply, you're going to get a positive number. Okay, so 4 and 3, if I add them together, that will give me 7. Negative root 2 take away 2. So negative 2 take away 2 is actually negative 4. And then we just place the root 3 there. So negative 2 root 3's take away another negative, take away root 2 root 3 will give me this as my answer. And it's in this form. Okay, next question. Some of you might have spotted, is it dots? Yes, because the 3 and the 3 is identical, the root 5 and the root 5 is there, and the signs have swapped. So let's use FOIL again. So 3 times by 3 is 9. Then I've got my minus 3 root 5. And then I've got my positive 3 root 5. So you can see an elimination is going to happen. Then I've got root 5 times by negative root 5 is root 25 One is positive, one is negative, making that negative, and that's going to give me negative 5. Now what you'll notice at the two middles will cancel out. 9 take away 5 gives me 4, and 4 is my answer. And I've got those 2 marks. Okay, we've seen something previous like this on the previous one of the previous questions. We've got 5 minus root 3 over 2 plus root 3. When it's asking you to leave your answers into this form, you see there is no denominator. So what they're asking you is turn your, get rid of your denominator, and by rationalizing. So let's get rid of this root 3. The only way to do it is to times it by itself, but using dots. So to use dots, I've got to flip the sign on that. Now whatever I do to the bottom, I'll do to the top. So when you multiply this out, root 2 times by root 2 is 4. Root 2 times by root 3 is actually negative root 3. So I'm going to write this over here. When I multiply this out, this gives me a positive 2 root 3, and that will create an elimination. So that will disappear. And I'm just left with root 3 times by root 3, which is minus root 9, if I'm considering the positive timesing by the negative. And therefore that will give me that minus 3 that I'm getting over here. Now all I need to do is multiply out my tops. So 5 times by 2 is 10. Then I've got 5 times by minus root 3 is 5 root 3. And then I have a takeaway 2 root 3 by multiplying these two numbers together. And then I'm going to multiply these two numbers together to give me a positive 3. Okay, so so root 3 times by root 3 is root 9, and the square root of 9 is 3. Alright, okay, so we've got 10 plus 3 at the top, which is 10 plus 3, which is 13. Then I've got negative 5 take away 2. Well, negative 5 take away 2 is negative 7, and we've got the root 3 there. Now 4 take away 3 is 1 at the bottom, so that's my answer. So it's 13 take away 7 root 3. Okay. Our last question in this video, we're going to need to multiply this in the form of a plus root b root 2, where a and b are integers. Again, we're going to use FOIL, so we're going to use 5 times by 1 first, which is 5. Then 5 times by positive root 2 is positive 5 root 2. 1 times by negative root 8 is simply a root 8. And minus root 8 times by positive root 2 is a minus root 16. Okay, so let's have a look. Now these cannot be brought together yet, but let's take a look at root 8 on the side. So you need to do something extra here. Now root 8 can be rewritten as root 4 times by root 2. If you square root 4, that can be written as 2 root 2. So I could rewrite root 8 as 2 root 2. So I've got 5 root 2, now minus 2 root 2. If I square root 16, I will actually get a 4. But there's a minus in front of it, and I have this 5 there. 5 take away 4 is 1, and 5 root 2 take away 2 root 2, let's just concentrate on 5 take away 2, that's just 3. And that's my final answer. And yes, it is in the form of a plus b root 2. So I've done it correctly. Right, okay, last question, which is now worth 3 marks. You've got this root 80 plus 30 over root 5. You want it in the form of c root 5. So what we're going to do is rewrite this as though this is a fraction. So I'm going to keep it under 1. So let's just see that more clearly over here. So I've got root 80 over 1 plus 30 over root 5. Now to add fractions, your denominators must be the same, but they're not. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to times this by root 5. And I'm going to times the top by root 5, and we're going to see what happens. Okay, so what I get is root 80 times by root 5. I'm going to combine that surd to give me root 400. And root 400 is going to be over this root 5. And I'm going to plus it with root 30 over root 5. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is we're going to bring the fraction together. So what I will have over here is root 400 plus 30 over root 5. Now if I square root 400, that's just 20 plus 30 over root 5. And that just is 50 over root 5. Now I need to rationalize it because there's no surd at the bottom. So that means I'm going to times my top by root 5. And I'm going to times my bottom by root 5. So root 5 times by root 5 is simply just 5. And on top I have 50 root 5. Now what will end up happening is that this 5 will cancel with that 50. Both can be divisible by 5, leaving you 10 on top and 1 at the bottom. So the answer is 10 root 5. And therefore it's in the form of c root 5. Okay, so hopefully that's helped you dealing with all other areas of SURDS. So do work through the video carefully or revisit it. Thank you.